Ina mana ina reo ina rau rangatira mā tēnā koutou katoa. That was my New Zealand accent coming through there. I'd like to acknowledge the people of this land, the past elders and the present elders. And I guess I should probably acknowledge the clan chiefs somewhere back in the misty Isles of Scotland. I'm the New Zealand representative on this panel, and it's always really good to go third, because all the really smart stuff has been said by someone else, and they've completely wrecked your presentation. So look, I'll do my best to try and keep this sort of interesting and relevant. I'll start with a wee bit of New Zealand context, although there are a few Kiwis in the room. The New Zealand environment is quite different, of course. We have the pleasure of only having 2 layers of government, central government and local government. We have just over 30 central government departments, 78 local government authorities, 4 million people, no need to make jokes about sheep at this point, and 1 million overseas. So the New Zealand diaspora is a bit like the Scottish diaspora. It's very widespread. One of the things that is really important to our current government, and therefore to all of the public service, is the delivery of better public services. And those of you who heard the opening address yesterday will know just how passionate our senior ministers are about producing better results and better outcomes for New Zealanders. So that's one of the government's 4 priorities, along with responsibly managing finances, building a more productive and competitive economy, and of course supporting the Christchurch rebuild after the earthquake. We have the pleasure of leading one of the results, which is Result 10, and Result 10 is all about making it easy for citizens to transact in a digital environment. But interestingly, DIA is also the home of a role called the Government Chief Information Officer. It's one of 3 functional leadership roles in our government, and by functional leadership, what it means is my job as GCIO is to try and work across the silos, which is really interesting and challenging for anyone who's tried to do that. Because all of our accountability, and you'll be very aware of this yourselves, all of our accountability models go up to ministers, and yet citizens go this way through government. And I think one of the themes today that's emerged very strongly is there's this whole issue of citizen centricity, and I think it's a huge opportunity. Because for me, when I think about the problem, the challenge, the opportunity, and I have to say there were points this morning where I was beginning to feel quite daunted. Did anybody else feel daunted earlier today when you thought about the enormity of the challenge that we've got? There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of ways that we can really change and do things differently. But I think the prize is absolutely enormous. And I think as public service leaders, we have a phenomenal opportunity to make a real shift in the way citizens experience government. And I say public sector leaders, I was a wee bit concerned about being referred to as administrators this morning. I know it's a technical term that we are in fact public administrators, but if we think of ourselves as administrators, we might as well all just go home, because this stuff needs real leadership, and it's only the people in this room and people like us that can do that. And that's, let's call it administrative leadership rather than political leadership, but it needs leadership nonetheless. My contention is, and it supports everything that's been said today, is that the traditional government service models are no longer fit for purpose. They're not becoming fit for purpose, not fit for purpose. They have become not fit for purpose. They do not meet or even come close to what citizens are experiencing in other parts of their lives. And the introduction to this session in the brochure talked about, this Amazon-like government experience. What would that look like? If it was truly an Amazon-like government experience, it would be totally different to what it is today. It would be so much easier for the customer. We would be connecting the dots behind the scenes. We wouldn't be waiting till somebody applied. We would be proactively offering people the opportunity to get their entitlements. It would be faster. It would be more efficient. And we would be doing quite a different job. And that's a bit of a distance when you go from left to right on that slide. And I'm really not sure how we do that, to be quite frank. It's a terrible admission as a chief executive of a government department to say, I don't quite know how we do this. other than we do it one step at a time. That we actually have to get started, and we have to start doing things. We're working in what's effectively an organic system. It's too complex to be knowable. Intervention logic doesn't work here. We have to try things, we have to disrupt the status quo, and we have to see what happens. We have to then respond to that change to the system. It's quite a different thing, and it's quite hard, I think, for us, given the political pressure and the pressure from the public, to do that level of experimentation. So I think we do need some golden rules. Now, I don't know if these are they, but I'm going to have a go at what I think are the, amongst the things that are most important. We've heard a lot today already about putting the customer at the center. And it's really easy to say, and it's incredibly difficult to do, because citizens are individuals, they're unique. They have needs, they have expectations, and they have context, and we won't always know their context. There are also broadly two types of customers we need to think about. We need to think about those customers to whom we deliver services, and we need to think about those customers that we regulate, because we are still regulators. The time may come when we truly have an Uber experience where we're all regulating each other. But until that happens, government still has a role to set the rules and to try and help society to work in a sensible way. So in New Zealand, we've put a lot of effort into trying to understand customer needs, and this thing goes in stages. So stage one has been about identifying some customer personas to act as ways of helping people to really think about the different types of customers that you might be dealing with. There's a whole bunch of work gone into this to try and say, well, broadly speaking, there are these types of citizens who have these types of characteristics. Now, it gets us started on this journey, but it's still a proxy for actual customer experience. But when I think about where we are and where we're trying to get to, it's not a bad start. Because right now, similar to one of our other speakers today, we did a quick count of government websites. In New Zealand, we have well over 500 because we actually gave up when we reached the 500 mark. We stopped counting, and that's just for central government. All of the sites have a different look and feel. They have different approaches. Most of them, you can't actually complete your transactions online. So to take a step forward, we've produced a new gov.nz website. We used a lot of the stuff that's been done in the UK. We've got a really good relationship with the guys in the UK. They gave us all of the source code, and we went through an alpha and a beta test, and we launched it. Fantastic. Within 6 weeks, we'd changed it dramatically, despite all of that hard work. And I'm not being in any way critical of this process. We did exactly the right thing, particularly at the point when the team came back to me and said, actually, we want to make a really quite significant change to the look and feel, even though we've only been running 6 weeks. And it was exactly the right thing to do, because yes, it was nice and easy to use. People could find the information. It was fantastic, but it didn't feel like government. It didn't feel authoritative. So we did some things. We changed the typeface. We changed the colors to make it look a little more stern. So it was interesting that actually in our effort to become really user-centric, we went to such a different experience for users that they didn't trust it to the level that we wanted them to. So that was really, for us, an interesting learning. Part of putting the government at the center in the digital world is to make sure that we can really easily figure out that the person at the other end of the bit stream is who they say they are. They are who they say they are. So we've got a product in New Zealand called Real Me. It started off as a purely government product. We've now partnered with New Zealand Post, who are a state-owned enterprise, to deliver it into the private sector as a product that they might want to use in their digital world. And the reason we've done that is because we realize that people transact infrequently with government. And there are three things that this authentication product can do. The first thing is let you log on to a service. The second thing is for you to verify your identity. But importantly, the third thing is to allow you to exchange information in a way that you can control and that you can manage. And to pick up Tam's example, in the future, online, when you change your address, all of the agencies to whom you've given permission will be able to receive that address change. That's the That's the plan. If you don't have the identity piece solved, in my view, getting the digital piece solved will just simply not happen. And I know in the UK they've taken a different approach to this. And they've used the private sector to really figure out the authentication problem. I'm not convinced that this is something that we can leave to the private sector. There's lots that the private sector can do, but confirming that somebody is who they say they are to the level of authority that we in government want, I'm not sure that that's such a wise decision, but only time will tell. Golden Rule 2, we've already heard it today. Design services around life events. People don't get up in the morning and think, I'd really like to get in touch with the Department of Internal Affairs today. I think I'll give them a ring. They're nice folks. They'll be friendly. We'll have a nice wee chat. They tend to give us a ring when they want to go overseas, as an example. They want to get their passport. Well, actually, they don't want to get their passport. They want to travel. So we've put a lot of energy into making it really, really easy to get your passport. We're the only country in the world where you can apply for and have your passport approved online and have it be sent out to you, typically in about 3 or 4 days. It's a fabulous service. It's world leading and it's great. And we're not going to put much more money into it because it's a standalone service. The next step will be to find ways of integrating that into people's lives, perhaps on the Air New Zealand website. When you try to book your flight and we can say, well, actually, you don't have a valid travel document. Would you like to apply now? Because that would be a much more sensible way of doing it. So what we're doing now is identifying a whole bunch of life events, and we've started working on 4 of them, because this is sadly a relatively slow process. The first one is the birth of a child event. So instead of, when your child is born, instead of having to then go and register with in our case, IRD, your case, ATO, get your health services, get your plunket nurse, or whatever it happens to be, you'll be able to go to this app and everything will be there for you to access and for you to use. As the colleague of mine who leads this said, she said, well, look, I've had 2 kids. There's a hell of a lot of downtime when you have children. I don't think I would have got away with saying that, but Maria got away with saying that. She said, actually, I would have really valued being able to do some of that stuff online and get it done. And what she was really saying was, that's a lot easier than having to go off to whatever the government office happens to be when you've just had a baby. So figuring out design around life events, I think, is crucial. It's also hugely challenging because we can't stay within our own organizational silos and do that. And in fact, I believe this is the most fundamental challenge to our current operating model in terms of government. And this will be a very big issue to solve. And if we don't do it, it will eventually trip us up, but I'll come up to that in a minute. So we've got to work differently. We can no longer work as a service provider or a government department. We have to work within a system of services. So in New Zealand, we're trying to take a kind of hybrid approach. We describe it as being centrally led but collaboratively delivered. There is no way that I can see somebody at the center orchestrating all of this and running all of this, but somebody has to take a leadership role and really try and help people guide the way. So that's effectively what my role is to try and provide that overall guidance. But chief executives remain completely accountable for their delivery within their own organizations. But fortunately, the State Services Commissioner has now put an expectation on all chief executives that along with me, they will take a leadership role, that they will play fairly, they will join in. And that's the issue about trying to balance agency and system priorities, and I'll come back to that shortly. None of these things have had anything to do with technology. But the last one is, we will have to transform ICT to be able to do this. We've all built our systems and our methods and our ICT shops individually and separately. Now what we need to do is start driving a much bandied word, an ecosystem, an ICT ecosystem that actually does work together. A lot of energy over the last couple of years in New Zealand, therefore, has also been put into the back end of all of this, the stuff that a few of us get very excited about. I now have to confess I'm a geek from way back. I have a degree in computer science. I think this makes me a true digital native, because I got my degree in computer science before 1980. I don't know if that qualifies me. I'm going to claim it anyway. So I've been playing in this space for a long time. And this stuff does interest me because I know how much payback you can get. So we've done a lot of work trying to encourage agencies to take as-a-service offerings rather than continue to invest in their own infrastructure. Not just because it saves money, but actually because when we come to start looking at how we exchange information, how we create end-to-end business processes, if they're all being built on consistent platforms, those business processes will work together much better. The information flows will be much more straightforward. and to the point made earlier, it also gives us an opportunity to build stronger security across that ecosystem. Because in the end, you'll see at the bottom there, all of this is supported by increased public trust and confidence. And that's there is a fundamental difference in my view as somebody who has also come in from the private sector, albeit a wee bit longer ago. If citizens lose trust in government, they don't have a choice. They don't just say, oh, to hell with that, I'll go and get my passport from somebody else. Well, actually they might, but that would be a really bad idea, because they'd be breaking the law in order to do that. If I have a bad experience with ANZ, who I used to work for, so I feel I can name them, I'll just go to Westpac, or I'll go to Commonwealth Bank. So I've got choice. Citizens don't have choice about who they can draw services from. So service quality and efficiency becomes one of the pillars that underpins trust and is part of the fundamental relationship between the citizen and the government. And therefore, it's incredibly important that we maintain that trust. But we lose the trust if we don't transform the services to look like much more, more like the services that citizens experience in the rest of their lives. So if we do this badly and we breach privacy, we'll lose trust. If we don't do it, we'll lose trust. Our only choice is to do it well and gain and maintain trust. So as I said, there are lots of challenges. The 4 golden rules, only one of them is about technology. Most of the challenges are actually about how we tackle this problem. And we're actually, in my view, we're reinventing the way citizens interact with government. And there isn't the same level of risk tolerance. There is a different level. But I do actually echo the points that we have to try things. But we've also got to create an environment where we're trusted to try things. And that takes a really interesting conversation with ministers. How many of your ministers have said, go on out there and fail? Go and get us on the front page of the newspaper for that service failure. That'll be a good thing. We all know what that's like. We've all kind of been there one way or another. The wonderful thing, the thing I really miss about the private sector is you can kind of bury your dead. You can actually refuse to give information about your failures. You don't have to do that. We do. As public servants, we do. And unfortunately, that means that the risk is much greater for us. But if we don't make those changes, my contention is we will lose citizen trust. So we've got to tackle some of the big rocks. I think one of the big rocks is this service model or operating model across government. Each of us doing our own thing, each of us providing our service, each of us thinking about the customer as a customer of our agency. We've got to figure out a way to break that and start thinking about people as citizens of the government, customers of the government. We've got to figure out how to manage these trade-offs between the system approach and the agency approach. When you've got a minister screaming in your ear saying, I want that benefit payment on time, done, I don't care about that big whole of government thing. And you've got another minister in your ear saying, I want the experience of government to be changed. We're the ones caught in the middle, and it's actually our job to take leadership of that and find a way through. It's not a political issue. Our politicians certainly, and yours may be the same here in Australia, our politicians consider that to be public service business. And we just simply have to get on with it. The big challenge in all of this, for me, is governance and accountability. So what do public servants do when they're not sure what to do? You've heard it already before, we set up some committees. So we've set up some committees. We have a thing called the ICT Strategic Leadership Group. Now, I'm actually really proud of this. I'm not usually proud of committees. I'm usually proud of things that make a difference to citizens' lives. But in this case, I've managed to secure the time and the energy of 10 of my chief executive colleagues to sit on that ICT Strategic Leadership Group. And I'll let you into a secret if you promise not to tell anyone. This isn't really about ICT. This is really about transforming government. And so the groups that report to this and are guided by this committee, only one of them is about technology. The other 3 are about much more interesting and important things like the service innovation, the service experience, the sharing and management of information, the mining of information, the use of information to drive better outcomes for citizens. And then figuring out how the funding models and any revenue models have to change in order to support this approach. Because as I said earlier, our old models won't work, they won't support us. We've managed to make progress, but I can tell you some of the stuff that's been hardest of all in the last 3 years has been actually getting our public management approach to fit across horizontal, a sectoral method. So within those groups, we've got more than 50 senior leaders, and these are chief executives or second-tier leaders involved from 19 central government agencies. So some may, the cynical amongst them might think it's just me trying to spread the blame if things go wrong. But it is time to spread the leadership and actually get more people on this journey. I mentioned funding as being one of the big challenges. And one of the learnings for me in this area is just follow the money. If you can figure out how to follow the money, or ideally lead the money, this will get a lot easier. And one of the things that I think we have to do next is to look at how we approve investment in agency changes, agency-based transformations. I know that Singapore are doing some really good stuff in this area. And there's a balance between an agency investment and a system investment. And I think we need to move that way as well. But in the end, it's all about the benefits. So it is for me about trust and confidence. It all comes back to that. If we get it right, then citizens will start to consider government to be an effective and an efficient partner. And it will start to talk to some of the issues we talked about this morning, about the lack of engagement between citizens and government, fewer people voting, fewer people getting involved. Technology is not the answer, but it is one of the tools that we can deploy within this change in experience. And so ultimately, the question was, are we there yet? And Tam was absolutely right. If we think we're there, then we're probably on the wrong journey. No, we're not there yet. We've taken some steps, we're making some progress. So as an example, Result 10 target is that by 2017, 70% of New Zealanders' most common transactions will be online. We're currently sitting at about nearly 46%. That continues to be a challenging target. RealMe, we've got 62 login services delivered through 20 agencies. We've got more than 2 million accounts, and they're driving millions of logins. We've got 60,000 verified accounts, and that's growing quite dramatically. And RealMe won the Security and Online Safety Award in the 2014 Australasian Internet Awards, which was really good. It's a really good product. Our gov.nz website, 20,000 people a day visit that site, 800,000 users in the last 3 months. Finalist in the UN Public Service Awards in 2015. This is the brag sheet, you probably realize now. And then finally, delivering services around life events. I mentioned those already. We're starting to make progress there, but it is very early days. There are 2 aspects to this. Sharing for the customer, which is reusing their information and making it much easier for them to be able to do what they want to do, and then sharing with the customer in a privacy-protected way, providing information to service providers that those people may want to use. My very final point, up until now I haven't really mentioned the private sector, but I think the private sector has a huge role to play here. We've been talking this today about the idea of government as a platform. However we describe it, we could call it as an Amazon-style ecosystem, we could call it whatever we like. But in the end, I think we have to create an environment where the private sector can come in and provide services that citizens can then choose to use. We will have to set the rules. We'll have to be what's called the ecosystem driver. And if you talk to Amazon, that's what Amazon did. Amazon drove that ecosystem. They decided where it was going to go. They decided what the rules were. And then they attracted people towards them. And I think as government, not only can we do that, I think we must do it. We need to drive the ecosystem. We need to make it not just okay for the private sector to play, we need to make it positively attractive, because we cannot provide all the service needs that our citizens are going to be looking for. Thank you.